Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to the Coaches Training Hub podcast, episode number 1. I'm your host Steve Hahn, and I'm here with very special guest. But before I get into that, we have a panelist on the show who's going to be talking with us. And just to explain the gist of our show, our aim is to speak and to create with a community of football coaches around the world. We're from Korea, actually, but we're not only going to focus on our market. We're actually going to open this up globally. Just to introduce myself, I've been a football writer for the last 15 years for Goal.com, and now I'm with FIFA Plus. So I've always been invested in the game, but always wanted to talk about something more than just what we see simply in football news nowadays. And I feel like this is a great opportunity to get us started in doing that. And with that, I'm going to introduce my co-host, Young-Hoon Jang. He's a football coach in South Korea. How's it going, my friend? Welcome to the show.
Hi guys, my name is Young-Hoon, and actually when I have to introduce myself, I introduce myself as Valenciano Coreano. It means Valencian Korean because I'm a Korean, but I was in Valencia and I studied in Valencia more than a year. And I got my coach license there. So actually after that in Korea, I've worked with 7 different Spanish coaches. So I'm a Korean, but professionally maybe I'm a little bit Spanish, So I have to show different view of football, and I want to see the football in different way with different guys.
Welcome to the show. Very interesting background. We don't often have many Koreans in Spain, let alone a Korean who's invested in football in Spain. So yeah, very interesting background. And one of the reasons why he's here, because we're all weird people, to be honest. I'm here in America, Korean guy in America who's emotionally invested in the game of football. You don't see a lot of those either. That's probably more rare than a Korean in Spain, having passion for football. So just to get started, I'm going to introduce our very special guest. He is a good friend of ours and also a coach that we respect a lot, Norbert Csorba with Chelsea Rovers and with CTH Project. How's it going, Norbert? I don't want to say long time no see because we spoke about a month ago, but how's everything, my man?
Hey, yeah, guys. First of all, thank you for having me. Hanaseyo, if I said it correctly. Obviously, we're all over the place on this podcast. You're in the States. Some of the guys in Korea. I'm in London. I just came back from preseason from Serbia, actually, with the team. So it's that time of the year. It's quite busy. I'm taking a quick break from Norwich City at the moment. Restarting end of July with the kids at the academy. So I'm kind of a little bit freed up with my schedule, but it's a 24/7 job, as you know. You never stop thinking about it.
Sure.
Emotionally invested. It's best not to have a girlfriend when you do this. I'm good, thank you, and I look forward for this meeting as well. So again, much appreciate this opportunity to having me on the podcast. Thank you kindly, Steve.
So a preseason in Serbia. How's the weather over there in the summer?
You ever see one of those movies when they land on the sun and the spaceship burns? Yeah. Imagine that. 38 Celsius, says the news. But you can imagine in the sun it's above 40 plus. So it was killing.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess it's the perfect place for preseason to torture your players. But Norbert, I'm going to get started by asking you a very simple question because I think you owe our audience a bit of an introduction about yourself because we know you, and I'm sure quite a few of us who will be watching this will know you. But your coaching credential at this very moment doesn't just end with what you're doing with CTH or Chelsea Rovers. So you're involved in coaching with the Norwich Academy. You've got long-standing relationships with clubs across Europe, Dinamo Zagreb, Celtic, and Ajax. So tell us about what you're about.
So, long story short, I'm from Serbia, born and raised there. Back in the days, it was called Yugoslavia. I played up till I was 18, third league in Serbia, and then I had to stop. And I haven't been in football up till I was 28. In between, I had a short story here and there. Moved to London 2018, and I figured, you know what, let's get back to the first love I had, which was football. As many players who didn't make it, myself as well, I wanted to get into coaching. Did my level 1 and 2 in London. Did my UFAB in England as well, obviously. I'm a UFA candidate now, and I work for Norwich City, the academy. Studied with Ajax. I traveled to Scotland to do my level 1. I traveled to Amsterdam to do the level 2 at their academy, the Tokemost in Amsterdam. That was fun. Always been a fan of Dutch football. So I've been chasing Ajax for the past 3 years. And finally, last year in Scotland, I had the opportunity to meet the director of the academy, Mr. Bart. And I'm a direct guy. I just went up to him. I said, look, this is what we do with Chelsea Rovers. This is our long-term vision. And we would like to have you on board. Could we host a camp collaborating with you? And they liked the idea. We agreed on it. And at the moment, as we speak, we're literally collaborating with Ajax. Not partners yet, but collaboration. So that's good. Then obviously I traveled to Dinamo Zagreb in Croatia this year, February, to see what's the secret behind them and, you know, just to look at their academy and whatnot. So I met with some people there. Luckily, I speak the language because Serbian and Croatian, it's almost the same. And I gained some good, friends there and shared the vision again with them as well, and kind of managed to agree that we have a similar vision on a long-term plan. So we agreed that we will collaborate together on the coach education side, which was lovely and fantastic to see as well. Croatia is close to my heart. It's almost the same as Serbia. Same culture, same mentality, maybe a little bit different. They got a C we don't have, so yeah, whatever. And I did a few courses online with Barcelona, which was interesting. It was more on the psychological side, I would say, quite in-depth, similar to a master's degree, but in a shorter term. And at the moment, as we speak, I'm doing my master's degree in football coaching and performance at St. Mary's, Twickenham, London. So a little bit all over the place. Used to work for Charlton Foundation in Greenwich, East London. I did a little bit of foundation work with Chelsea in the development centre and many other grassroots clubs in London. So that's the long story short.
No, that wasn't short. So that was just a long story. But anyway, so I mean, you're a man who does a lot of things. I mean, it's not like, so I just want to know, what's your day-to-day like as a coach? Because how would your day-to-day would compare to, because you give me an impression that you're not an average coach. So how would your day-to-day differ from an average coach? Like, because you seem to be doing a lot of things.
Oh, wow. Well, to be honest, it has to be very organized. Otherwise, I'll feel like I'm going nuts, which happened in the beginning until I learned. Look, Steve, it's straightforward. I'll wake up in the morning. I'll do my exercise to get my day started on the right foot. I'll sit down. I got 2 laptops, one from Norwich City, one from my personal life, which is Celtic, Ajax, Dinamo, whatever. And I'll look into things. What's going on? What's the next step? Everything is organized. I got some files. I got a to-do list. With Chelsea Rovers, I do from coaching to managing to admin to league secretary stuff to treasury stuff to welfare officer to grassroots level coaching live. So, and then I got 70 something players. So this is like having 70 something kids, checking on them, seeing how they feel and what their plans are, especially now this time of the year. I need to know who's staying with us, what are their ambitions, their plans, and there's trials going on. So I'm getting hundreds of emails, and I would say you're never bored. Let's say that.
So Norbert, I'm going to get into the real questions now. Because last time we spoke, just to let our audience know a little bit, Norbert and I first met because I had to interview. Well, I didn't have to, but it was my choice to interview him for a story for FIFA Plus. And basically, we talked about a project that we're working with Chelsea Rovers, with through the CTH project, where we would send prospective coaches to London so that they could be trained. I want to say under Norbert. I don't know how you feel about phrasing it that way, but so when we spoke last time, though, we didn't just talk about the project itself. We talk about something greater than that, I think. And we talked about because our conversation focused a little bit more on developing coaches at the time. But today I want to talk a little bit more about, from a coaching perspective, how player development works. And what would you say, you're involved in coaching at the grassroots level as well. So, what would you say are some of the most important elements for you as a coach that you look for in a player? For example, skills, football skills are coachable. At least a lot of them are. But some parts of the way human beings are not coachable. So what are some things that you look for in a player that may not be coachable? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. To be honest, Steve, this is a very complex theory, as they would describe it at Barcelona. It depends on the situation, it depends on the age group, it depends on the club's philosophy and goals, what they want. But personally, what I'm looking for with Chelsea Rovers at the level that we are and at the goals that we set is, as you said, skills are coachable, players can learn, but I'm looking for good people, good human beings that are coachable in a way, yes, but they have great values. 3 values that we focus on is one is respect. You must be respectful towards everybody around your environment. You must be humble. If you know it all, you don't know anything. And discipline, because motivation is overrated. Discipline will keep you going, and that will eventually help you succeed. So as long as I can see that you're a good person and I can work with you, obviously you need to know how to kick a ball, don't get me wrong. But these are the main things that I'm looking for in players.
Are those things coachable though?
No, I don't think so. But then again, if we're talking about children, then yes, you can implement it, because you will create the environment around them and you will guide them. Obviously with kids, there's the parents who are probably 80% of their time. So then again, it's a bit difficult. But with adults, you have an end product. It's like saying, Steve, here's this hammer and here's this screwdriver, build me a house. And you'll be like, wow, that's not a lot. Can you do something? You'll be like, yeah, okay, I'll do my best. That's your end product. You can fine tune it, but you will not change it. So those are the adult players. So that's why we need to have a certain character and type when we recruit.
And another thing that I wanted to ask you, I mean, we even talked about this before we started recording. There was a debate that I read about. It was actually in Korean, but it was really fascinating to me. A football coach at the amateur level was stressing that a concept of training and concept of practicing are two completely, well, may not be completely, but are two different things. A lot of the people on the outside looking in from football, because as a football writer, I don't consider myself as somebody who's within football. I look at myself as somebody who's on the outside looking in. So this concept of practice and training being two different things, it's a little bit of an abstract concept, if that makes sense to you. Do you agree with this idea? And as a coach yourself, how do you define training? How do you define practicing? Are they different? And if they are, how are they different?
Well, Steve, as I said, it's an interesting question that you sent through, because I don't think I ever heard anyone asking me this. Obviously, there are so many things that a coach doesn't talk about, but just keeps it in their own, mind, in their own little world, in their head, and they need to know what they're talking about. But just to define what you asked me, training for me is learning a new skill, right? Learning something that you don't know, putting you out of your comfort zone, and training, right? So, I don't know, you want to play as a striker, your finishing is bad, I'm going to train you a certain type of finishing. However, on the practicing side, I would say it's something that you already developed, but you want to make it better. It can be a natural competency, it can be a skill that you have, but you just want to make it better. So you're practicing to make it better. So those two are differentiated in a way that training is something new, practice is something that you want to evolve and make better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. So would you say, because it's interesting because what you're explaining to me is a little bit different from what the person who was talking about this concept actually said in that interview, because the impression that I got from what he said was that training is more of a preparation, whereas practicing is more of a repetition. And we're looking at it from that standpoint. Would you say that both are necessary as a football coach to develop his players?
Yeah, I mean, what you just said basically is almost the same as I said. It's just you worded it a little bit different. Repetition is building up muscle memory, which is the practice. So I agree with the coach.
Right.
Let's word it that way. So, and training is again something new. So both of them are important. I mean, again, never neglect the skills that you already have. So practice it, but you obviously have to learn new things. So train it. I mean, the coach has to train the player. It's all part of that little complex theory that football is.
Yeah, and I also recently spoke with a player who's going to be playing at the Women's World Cup. Actually, he's one of the key players for Korea. Her name is Chang Seul-gi, and she's probably one of the most positionally versatile players, at least in Korea. Plays all types of positions and roles. But what she told me was also fascinating, because she was trying to explain to me how there was nothing that stressed her more than having to play multiple positions as a kid growing up at youth level. Because she felt like she wasn't being given enough opportunity to settle and truly develop her skills in one role and one position to really showcase what she can do. But we all know, you're a football coach yourself. You probably like a player who can sacrifice for the team and play different types of roles depending on situations. So being positionally versatile also means that a player can sacrifice for the team. So how do you, as a coach, how do you see this aspect of the game when you're, at a very young age? This kid might only be interested in assisting or scoring goals, but how do you get a player like that to play the right way and play for the team? Like, how do you do that as a coach? How do you trigger that?
It's really interesting what you said. In order to sacrifice for the team, I think from the perspective that I look at it, it's a little bit different. Football is not just about one position. Imagine football like a puzzle, 11 pieces, right? 11 positions. In order to understand the big picture, you have to put these positions together. Now, I'll give you a quick example. You're a winger. You don't want to play anything else. You like to play down the wing, run up into space and score goals. Good, I'm fine with that. However, how do you know what types of movement, what types of runs you need to make in order to support your fullback? There's an example. So, in order to make you better, I will put you as a fullback behind you to understand next time what you need to do for your fullback, because you will play that position and you will see what the winger will do and what's good for you and what's not so good for you, what could be better. So in order to kind of make these players play in different positions, you have to play with their minds a little bit, with their little egos, and make them understand that you're on their side and you're trying to make them better. And it's not about playing different positions when I need you. It's about you understanding. It's like a chain, and each link has to be connected to the other link the right way. So a winger, if he moves up the pitch on the left-hand side, then depends on the formation, the tactics that the coach plays, the left fullback will move up and support him. If the left fullback is coming on the outside to overlap and the winger doesn't understand that he needs to cut in, then, it's not good for the fullback. So the winger needs to understand that. How is he going to understand that? Maybe he can play as a fullback and experience it in a real-life situation himself. And what the football player said that you interviewed, obviously. Sorry, I didn't remember her name. She said it was the most stressful thing. Yeah, but probably she wouldn't be where she is now if she didn't have that experience.
That's exactly what she said. Yeah.
Yeah, so cool. It was stressing her. It was taking her out of her comfort zone. But I think that's a major element that helped her be who she is.
Would you say, from your experience as a coach, would you say there are young players who actually fall out of where they are eventually because they have an attitude of not wanting to do or play a role that may not suit his preference. Like, have you seen cases like this?
I did, but I think this is a 50-50. It's a coach and player. The way the coach communicates to the player, it's really important not to be... Obviously, we live different times, so there's a lot of psychological aspect behind it, a lot of emotional intelligence. Football, for me, is all about emotional intelligence, because football is simple, keep it simple. But then again, it's the player as well, the attitude, the character. Because as we said before, a player has to be coachable, and no matter how good you are on the ball, if you don't have the right mentality and attitude, you're not going to make it.
You mentioned a very interesting word, emotional intelligence. In a football context, what does that really mean, emotional intelligence? Because, being overly emotional can actually hurt you on a football pitch, I think, or even in the training ground. So when you're talking about the importance of emotional intelligence in football context, how would you define that as a coach?
So basically, emotional intelligence is divided into two groups from what I know, from what I believe. Emotional intelligence has the interpersonal intelligence, which is communication with others, and intrapersonal understanding yourself. These are two very important things. As we always say to the players, how you feel, you do not choose that, right? It's normal to feel sad, upset, frustrated, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. However, the good news is how you react is your decision. So this is a continuous practice of recognizing and realizing how I feel, but then also having a trigger in your head that, hey, wait a second. Yeah, I missed that opportunity. Does it feel good? Absolutely not. But I shouldn't put my head down. I should keep trying, because if I put my head down, I'll miss another 10. So my reaction should be, I'm getting back on my feet. Like a boxer, he gets hit. He doesn't, give up the game because he got hit. He's going to continue. So same thing with the players as well. It's all about reaction if we're talking about emotional intelligence.
Sure. And when we spoke last time, you also mentioned something about Dinamo Zagreb that I thought was really interesting, and I want to dig more into that. It's just that interview we were doing, which just wasn't suitable, but I'm going to ask you more about this, because you told me something that was very interesting. You mentioned that there's actually no secret behind Dinamo Zagreb's ability to produce world-class players like Luka Modric and Mateo Kovacic. I mean, I kind of phrased it this way, but this intangible culture at Dinamo Zagreb that makes these things happen because they believe and behave like they can be the best and that they can produce the best in the world. Could you elaborate more on this? Because how do you just believe, if this makes sense, how do you just believe and how do you just behave like you can do something like this? It sounds pretty simple, but I think there's something in there more that you can talk about. How does that really happen? How did this Dinamo Zagreb reach that level to actually have that belief and actually to have those things, become realized?
I mean, don't get me wrong, obviously, when I said no secret, there is no secret when you go there and have a look at it, because it's just so simple. When I spoke to the secretary of the academy, and they were saying, Benfica has 300 scouts, for example, worldwide, approximately. And they said, you know how many we have? I said, I have no idea. And he said 3. I was like, what? That's what is that, 1%? I was like, okay. And he's like, yeah, but those 3 are in Brazil. They only look at the Brazilian market. What is the secret, or not secret? I've been to many academies, seen all these nice facilities, all these amazing equipments and materials and whatnot. But it's the environment. Their pitches, now I'm not talking down on Dinamo Zagreb, but they had nothing special on their pitches. They had, I think, one 3G pitch for the 11-a-side, one another 7-8-a-side. Yeah, like really, really small pitches. And I think there was another 2 grass pitches. If you look at it, you would think it's a third league team. It's the culture and mentality. Because if you give everything to a child, what is that child fighting for? There's a famous documentary, I think, here in England. It's called No Hunger in Paradise, if I'm not mistaken. Which is kind of true. Because, again, we spoke about knowledgeable coaches. These coaches in Dinamo Zagreb, they're doing the basic stuff, but they're doing it the right way. They're creating the right environment, behavior, culture. These kids are coming from poor backgrounds. I'm not saying as poor as, let's say, Africa, but still, they look at football as a way to get out of the country, maybe help their families. And another thing is that the families there are also raising their kids in a different style that they do in the Western world. And I'm not talking about, not talking down about Western culture, but I think it's just Western culture got a little bit soft with raising their kids. And I'm saying this because I've been living in Canada, in the States. I was raised in Serbia, now I'm in England, and I've seen so many different cultures. I've been to Asia as well. And I think back in the days, it was a little bit too rough back home. Now in the Western world, it's too soft. I think they should find somehow the middle road, if that makes sense.
And I think Young-hoon here has a question for you as well.
I think, Norbert, your opinion is pretty interesting because in Spain, many Spanish coaches say Croatia is kind of Uruguay in Europe because the population is not that huge, but many players always come from those countries. So many coaches say Croatia is Uruguay in Europe. So, but to find the secret, I think many coaches just find the reason in football. But as you said, but the reason is in the life because football is a part of our life, and we have to know what happens in our life. So in case of Dinamo Zagreb, I think as you said, the way of the life is totally different, and they are not that soft. They are much tougher than Western people. So I think that is the reason, and I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you in Valencia for many years, so you know as well as a different culture there as well.
Yeah.
Football is culture. Football is mentality. It's not a secret. It's just the way you behave and the way you carry yourself. And I mean, again, it not necessarily means that you're coming from a poor background. Don't get me wrong, because I used to work as the football director for SGI, which was an educational program with Fleetwood Town in London. And we had all these kids coming from South London. And it's, poor areas, tough backgrounds, second generation children. And you would think, obviously, these kids are coming from poor families. They're going to work hard and listen. But unfortunately, I would say 99% of them, they didn't care. They had a bad attitude. Why? Because they're already growing up in this culture, in this environment. Their parents are probably busy, who are first generation parents, working. They can't raise their kids with their culture, their mentality, because they're working hard to provide. These kids are growing up on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, social media, and they're learning from their modern culture, and they're becoming soft. So they're not working hard. So again, yes, you have to be poor, but the culture has to be there as well. It's a fine balance between these two.
Yeah.